I proposed to my fiancée. Without knowing, she'd briefly dated my psychotic sister who tried to one-up me by proposing to my fiancé a few months later. Things got crazy, and we were forced to file a police report against her. I proposed to my fiancé not knowing I would find myself trapped in a love triangle. I met Katie at a local brewery during trivia night. We instantly clicked. She was gorgeous, witty, and had this incredible energy that I was immediately drawn to. The way she laughed at my terrible jokes, and the sparkle in her eyes when she talked about her passions, made me feel like I'd known her for years. We exchanged numbers and dated for just 5 days before making things official. Fast forward to November when I finally mentioned to my family that I was seeing someone serious. I'm typically pretty private about my relationships until I can actually see them going somewhere, so my family hadn't heard much about Katie until then, or so I thought. During dinner, my parents asked to see a photo of her, and my phone got passed around the table. When my sister Pepper saw Katie's picture, she completely lost it. Her face went completely red, and she started thumping her fists against the table like a toddler who doesn't want to eat her broccoli. "No, no, no, you're the worst brother ever!" Pepper shouted, and just before I could phone the local psychiatric ward, I found out why. Apparently Katie had somehow dated Pepper. She immediately demanded that I break up with her. I obviously refused, and sat back as the entire dinner was practically ruined. And of course I felt pretty awful, but there was no way I was going to let it show. So I waited until everyone had retreated to their bedrooms and asked my girlfriend Katie about it. She explained how their relationship ended and that Pepper had been the one to break things off. I decided to look past it, because they only went out for 4 to 5 weeks, and I was convinced that Katie would be the mother of my children. So a few months later on Katie's birthday, I organized a special dinner with both our families and her closest friends because I thought it had blown over. The restaurant was her favorite, this cozy Italian place with twinkling lights and the best tiramisu in town. It was the perfect place to pop the big question. And when I saw my time come, my heart raced. I still remember how I felt when I bent down on one knee and asked the most beautiful girl in the world to marry me. But it didn't go as planned, because just before Katie could say anything, my sister dumped her wine glass all over her. I was so shocked I couldn't even move, and Pepper just stormed out. But instead of getting mad, me and Katie just laughed, and she still said yes. After that, life felt like a Disney movie. It really felt like nothing could make me sad ever again. So when Pepper broke her 8 weeks of silence to invite us to a big family dinner at her apartment, we accepted, thinking perhaps she was finally ready to be civil. The dinner was pleasant enough, nothing fancy, just casual conversation over pasta. After dinner, we moved to the living room to continue chatting. About half an hour into normal conversation, Pepper suddenly stood up and announced she had something important to share. She launched into this long, dramatic speech about being grateful to have family around for her special moment. Pepper plastered this sort of plastic smile on her face, and she straight up looked like Momo Girl. Then she got down on one knee, pulled out this ring that looked like it was from AliExpress, and asked Katie to marry her. The room went dead silent. Katie looked horrified, her face drained of color as she demanded Pepper get up and put the ring away. I tried to keep my cool, but then Pepper started acting like a psychiatric escapee. No one had said anything, and she jumped up and said, "It's okay, baby girl. You don't need to say yes. I can see it in your eyes." She then proceeded to sit on Katie's lap and used her strength to hold her down while she tried to, well, you know. I saw tears start to form in Katie's eyes, and I couldn't help myself. I lunged forward and socked Pepper. I was seeing red. Through my rage, I heard her saying something about wanting to expose Katie, claiming she wasn't really into me and was just trying to get revenge on Pepper for dumping her. Before things escalated further, my parents rushed me out and promised they'd talk to Pepper. It's been several days, and I'm still furious. My hand is bruised from the punch, and I can't stop replaying the scene in my head. Edit. First, thank you all for reading and responding. I've been going through the comments since last night, and you've all made valid points. I appreciate the support and the reality checks. Both were needed. There isn't much to update since I've only spoken to Katie and Alan since the dinner fiasco. Katie's been incredibly understanding, but I can tell she's shaken by what happened. We've spent the last few evenings just talking things through, trying to make sense of it all. I want to clarify a few things I noticed in the comments. 1. Yes, Katie and I got engaged relatively quickly. We both knew early on this was the real deal. We're similar in many ways. We both know what we want and don't see the point in waiting once we're sure. Despite the timeline, I'm 100% certain about her. When you know, you know. 2. When we met, I approached her at the brewery, not the other way around. She was competing on a rival trivia team and playfully trash-talked our answers. When I asked Katie if she knew Pepper and I were related when we first met, she insisted she had no idea. I believed her then, but I admit Pepper's extreme reaction does raise some questions. It seems unlikely Katie would have orchestrated our meeting, but Pepper's accusations have planted a tiny seed of doubt that I hate myself for entertaining. 3. I genuinely had no knowledge of their relationship when I met Katie. Pepper and I aren't close anymore. We used to be when we were kids, but we drifted apart as adults. We're fundamentally different people with opposite values. Before moving back, we barely communicated except on birthdays and major holidays. Katie knew I had family, but not much else until I decided to introduce them. When she and Pepper reconnected at Thanksgiving, neither seemed to have lingering feelings. Katie wasn't overly friendly or awkward, just normal. If anything, I'd say Pepper seemed more affected than Katie. 4. From what I understood, they dated for just a month. I didn't think I needed Pepper's blessing to propose, but maybe that was an oversight on my part. I planned to talk to Pepper this weekend to get everything out in the open. I never asked for her side of their relationship, which is my fault. I avoided the conversation because I didn't want details about their romantic past, but clearly, that approach backfired spectacularly. If anything significant happens, I'll update you all. In response to comments about family pressure, thankfully, I've only heard the but she's family argument from my mom and a couple aunts who always take her side. They know me well enough to understand our relationship isn't strong enough for me to tolerate this level of disrespect toward my fiancé. My dad has been surprisingly supportive, calling me privately to apologize for not shutting down the proposal attempt sooner. About Katie potentially going back to Pepper, I'm not worried about that at all. She can't stand Pepper either, especially now. When we got home after the dinner incident, Katie described Pepper's behavior as pathological and seemed more concerned about my family dynamics than anything else. Update 1. Thank you all for your support and advice. It's been a busy weekend, so I haven't responded to many comments, but I appreciate all perspectives, even the critical ones. They've helped me navigate this bizarre situation. I called Pepper and asked to meet at my place to talk things through. I mentioned I'd prefer having Katie present, but would understand if Pepper wanted to talk one-on-one. She agreed to meet with both of us and showed up around noon today. She looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes, but had still taken time to dress impeccably, always concerned with appearances. After an awkward silence where we all just stared at our coffee mugs, I started the conversation by apologizing for hitting her and for not warning her about my proposal to Katie. Violence is never the answer, and despite my anger, I shouldn't have reacted that way. Pepper shrugged and said it was whatever, but appreciated the apology. I then explained what Katie had told me about their relationship and breakup, asking Pepper to confirm if that version was accurate. I explained that her extreme reactions seemed disproportionate for such a brief relationship, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding how serious they had been. Pepper confirmed they only dated a few weeks, and that she ended things because she lost interest. She fidgeted with her bracelet the entire time, avoiding eye contact with both of us. Katie asked if Pepper was acting this way because she still had feelings or regretted ending their relationship. Pepper admitted she thought Katie was more attractive than before, but denied having any lingering feelings or regrets. The real issue, according to Pepper, was that she didn't like seeing someone she dated, regardless of how briefly, with her older brother. She insisted that as her brother, I should have respected some unwritten bro code by breaking things off with Katie once I learned of their history. When I reminded her that I had no idea they dated when Katie and I met, she dismissed this, saying it didn't matter. I still should have ended things. She claimed that if roles were reversed, she would have done the same, which I seriously doubt given her history of dating within friend groups. When I asked why she proposed to Katie if she didn't have feelings for her, Pepper revealed that one of her friends who knew about their relationship had planted the idea in her head. This friend suggested that Katie might have known all along that Pepper and I were related and was dating me to get revenge for the breakup. According to this friend, Katie had been hung up on Pepper after their breakup. They thought proposing would be a good test to see if Katie would dump me for Pepper, proving their theory. Katie asked why Pepper thought she was hung up on her. Pepper claimed Katie had been asking about her after the breakup and continued frequenting their old hangout spots, then, coincidentally, ended up with her brother. Her tone was accusatory, as though she'd caught Katie in some elaborate scheme. Katie explained she'd only asked about Pepper once after the breakup out of courtesy, and she'd been going to those places with her friends long before dating Pepper. She wasn't going to avoid her favorite spots because of a brief relationship. Katie told Pepper she was offended by the suggestion she would stoop so low as to date me just to get back at her. Her voice trembled slightly with anger as she spoke. Pepper gave a half-hearted apology, but insisted Katie needed to see it from her perspective. When Katie firmly stated she hadn't recognized any family resemblance until seeing us together and pointed out that we act nothing alike, Pepper finally seemed to accept it, though reluctantly. Before leaving, Pepper told me I could rescind her wedding invitation since she couldn't bring herself to support our relationship, knowing she used to date Katie. I told her not to worry about it since she was likely going to be uninvited anyway. Her shoulders slumped slightly at this, but she nodded and left without further drama. It's been several hours since our conversation, and I do feel better having gotten clarity. My parents aren't happy about Pepper being uninvited to the wedding, but they understand it was a mutual decision and probably for the best. My mom texted that she hopes we can work things out before the big day, but I'm not holding my breath. My sisters say they knew Pepper didn't have a legitimate reason for her behavior and don't blame me for not wanting her at the wedding. For now, I'm limiting contact with Pepper, and I doubt she'll reach out to me anytime soon either. Thanks again to everyone for your support and advice. It's helped me stand my ground in a situation where I might have otherwise caved to family pressure. Responding to why Katie didn't recognize Pepper was related to me. We hadn't discussed my family much early in our relationship. I'd moved away partly to distance myself from my parents, and only started reconnecting with them at Alan's request when I moved back. I was upfront with Katie about not being close with my family, and she respected my privacy given the circumstances. Plus, Pepper and I don't share a last name, She uses our mother's maiden name professionally and on social media, something she started in college to stand out. It's not unusual that Katie wouldn't make the connection. Update 2. It's been a couple weeks since my last update, and there have been some developments in the situation with my family. The dust had barely settled from our confrontation when new drama erupted. I've maintained low contact with Pepper since our talk. We haven't called each other, and our only interactions have been during family gatherings. I've been polite but distant, keeping conversations brief and impersonal. Recently, my mom has become increasingly upset about Pepper still being uninvited to my wedding. She's called several times to discuss it, each conversation ending with her saying I'm being unreasonable and holding a grudge. This all came to a head at my youngest sister Vaughn's birthday celebration. The party was at a fancy restaurant downtown, one of those places with exposed brick walls and industrial lighting that somehow still feels warm and intimate. Her boyfriend of about 4 years proposed at the end of the night, and we were all discussing her wedding ideas over champagne and dessert. While talking about venues and dresses, Vaughn casually mentioned, "David, I know Pepper's banned from your wedding, but you won't care if she comes to mine, right?" I laughed and assured her I would never dictate her guest list. My mom gave me a strange look and asked if Pepper was still uninvited to my wedding. When I confirmed this, she became visibly irritated, her lips pursing into a thin line as she insisted she thought I was joking and accusing me of being unreasonable since Pepper is family. She suggested I was just holding a grudge to be petty. I reminded her that Pepper and I had mutually agreed she wouldn't attend, then pointed out that this wasn't the appropriate time to discuss my wedding as we were celebrating Vaughn. Vaughn backed me up, telling our mom to stop making her special day about Pepper. Mom dropped it, though Pepper wasn't even at the party due to work commitments. A few days later, my mom showed up at my house unannounced, saying she wanted to discuss my wedding. She was dressed in what I call her confrontation outfit, navy blue pantsuit and pearl earrings she only wears when she means business. She questioned why I was so adamant about excluding Pepper, suggesting I was insecure about Katie and Pepper's past relationship. I repeated that Pepper and I had mutually agreed on her not attending, and told her Pepper could approach me directly if she had concerns. We argued in my living room for nearly an hour, our voices gradually rising until we were practically shouting. Finally, my mom declared that if I wouldn't re-invite Pepper, she wouldn't attend either because I was ostracizing her daughter. I shrugged and told her she was free to toss her invitation, if that's how she felt. I wouldn't beg her to attend. When she asked if I would really be okay with her absence, I reminded her it wouldn't be the first time she'd missed one of my important events because of Pepper. She accused me of unfairly bringing up her past mistakes and stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Since then, I've been bombarded with messages and calls from my mom and various family members, all insisting I'm in the wrong and urging me to invite Pepper for the sake of peace. The family group chat has become a battleground, with aunts and uncles I barely speak to suddenly having strong opinions about my wedding guest list. Mom has also been messaging Katie, asking her to convince me to change my mind, but Katie hasn't responded. She's shown me the messages. They range from guilt-tripping to attempting to bond over difficult men. Most of my mom's side of the family is now boycotting the wedding in solidarity with her. My dad, his sister and brother-in-law and their kids, my sisters and Katie's family, are still planning to attend. I spoke with Pepper directly about the situation, and she confirmed she had uninvited herself and has no desire to attend. She's baffled by the drama and wants to be left out of it entirely, which makes my mom's crusade even more frustrating. I'm currently low contact with my mom, though my dad and I remain on decent terms. He calls occasionally to check in, careful to avoid mentioning the drama. I'm still deciding whether to offer to re-invite my mom and her relatives if they change their minds about the boycott, but I'm leaning against it. Katie and I have started looking into downsizing our venue since our guest list has significantly decreased. We're trying to find the silver lining. At least now we can upgrade to the premium open bar within our budget. Update 3. My mom is now permanently uninvited from our wedding. About 2 weeks after she decided to boycott, she unexpectedly showed up at our home, saying she wanted to clear the air. Her tone seemed conciliatory at first, so we invited her in for dinner, and Katie even made her a plate of the lasagna we'd been preparing when she arrived. I asked if she was still planning to skip the wedding, and she confirmed that while she wanted to attend, she couldn't get over my decision to exclude Pepper because of a simple mistake. I reminded her that this simple mistake involved Pepper proposing to my fiancé while I sat 3 feet away, but Mom dismissed it as just a joke. She waved her hand dismissively, as if proposing to someone else's fiancé was on par with putting salt in the sugar bowl. Katie asked why Mom wanted to talk if her position on Pepper attending hadn't changed. Mom admitted she had hoped to catch Katie alone, assuming I'd be at work, to convince her to persuade me to invite Pepper. Katie politely explained she wouldn't have had that conversation without me present since it involved my sister. I could see Katie's discomfort in the way she fidgeted with her engagement ring, a nervous habit she has when she's trying to remain composed. Mom then made a comment about Katie being spineless and unable to have a conversation without me thinking for her, which sparked a heated argument. The tension in the room was palpable as accusations flew back and forth. Eventually, Katie told her to leave, her voice firm despite her visible distress. As Katie was unlocking the door, my mom grabbed her hair, pulled her to the ground, and began hitting her and trying to claw at her face while screaming about Katie tearing our family apart. I immediately pulled Mom off Katie and physically removed her from our home. She continued pounding on the door for several minutes before leaving, then called us repeatedly. After ensuring Katie was okay, she had scratches on her face and neck, and a clump of hair had been pulled out. I texted Mom that she should never contact us again. I was shaking with rage and concern, struggling to believe what had just happened. I called my dad and sisters to inform them what happened. Dad tried making excuses, saying Mom had been stressed about the situation. My sisters weren't surprised, saying they knew she'd snap eventually, since she's always been volatile. They came over to support Katie, bringing ice packs for her bruises and helping her clean up the scratches. I asked Katie if she wanted to press charges, but she declined, saying she only wanted to cut contact permanently. I told her that was obvious, but suggested she should still file a report since she was physically assaulted. She's hesitant to get my mom arrested, feeling guilty about potential consequences despite being the victim. My sisters and I are trying to convince her otherwise, and at minimum, I want documentation in case something happens in the future. The red marks on her face and neck have darkened to bruises, and seeing them fills me with a mixture of guilt and anger each time I look at her. Mom is now blocked on everything until Katie decides otherwise, which I doubt will ever happen. Even looking at her number on my blocked contacts list makes my blood boil. I never imagined my mother would physically attack the woman I love, no matter how heated the argument. Final update. Thank you to everyone who's provided advice and support throughout this nightmare. Katie and I have read your comments together and appreciate all the kindness. Your words have been a source of strength during this incredibly difficult time. Many asked why I reconnected with my family despite our history. Simply put, I'd do anything for my sisters. Chad, 31F, wanted the whole family around for the birth of her first child and to help her adjust to motherhood. She didn't want part-time aunts and uncles who only visited on holidays. She rarely asked for anything growing up, so when she requested I try rebuilding relationships for her sake, I agreed. Part of me also hoped my parents had changed. I don't regret trying. My parents are still terrible, but I met the love of my life through moving back, so I consider it a win. We filed a police report about the assault. Although Katie doesn't want to pursue charges, the officer explained it's not our decision whether the case proceeds, though they'd consider our preferences. We provided photos of Katie's injuries. The scratches on her face had scabbed over, and the bruises had turned a sickly yellow-green by then, and text exchanges with my parents discussing the incident. We were advised to report and record any future incidents. Based on our local law enforcement's track record, I doubt much will happen, but at least there's documentation should we need it in the future. My mom sent approximately 100 angry messages after being contacted by police. Her texts ranged from furious accusations to tearful apologies, and back again, sometimes within minutes of each other. She ambushed me outside my workplace, screaming that I was trying to ruin her life over a small misunderstanding. Her eyes were wild, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. When I explained that assault has consequences, she demanded I withdraw the report. After explaining it wasn't within my control, she had a meltdown in the parking lot, hitting me several times before security removed her. The entire scene was witnessed by several co-workers, which was humiliating, but at least provided additional evidence of her behavior. I had to explain the situation to my boss, who thankfully was understanding and offered to adjust my schedule if needed. Katie and I had a serious conversation about my family's place in our lives going forward. Following advice from many commenters, we've decided to go entirely no contact with everyone except my sisters. We agreed that maintaining these toxic relationships is creating unnecessary stress before we're even married, and we don't want to start our life together under this dark cloud. Katie suggested we consider relocating to put physical distance between us and my family. My brother-in-law, 29, lives about 3 hours away in a city we both like. It has great restaurants, beautiful parks, and a vibrant art scene we've enjoyed during previous visits. I've spoken with my employer about transferring, and Katie is exploring remote work options or potentially finding a new position. The prospect of a fresh start somewhere new has given us something positive to focus on amid all this chaos. We've changed our wedding plans again. With our significantly smaller guest list, my future brother-in-law has offered his lakefront property as our venue. The view is stunning, and the intimate setting feels more appropriate for the celebration we want. I don't plan to post further updates unless something dramatic happens, at least not until after the wedding, as we're focused on moving forward with our lives. Each day gets a little easier as we distance ourselves from the toxicity. Katie's bruises have healed, and we're working on healing the emotional wounds too. We've started couples therapy to ensure we're processing everything in a healthy way and to strengthen our communication before marriage. Our therapist has been incredibly helpful in providing tools to manage the ongoing stress and establish healthy boundaries. Happy holidays to everyone who's followed our journey. Your support has meant more than you know. When asked if his mom had read the Reddit posts, according to Vaughn, she's read many comments but doesn't think Reddit strangers have the right to tell her she's a bad person. I'm out of energy for attempting reconciliation. I wish them well, just from a very safe distance from me and my family. Life's too short to keep toxic people around, even if they share your DNA. Katie and I are focused on building our own family now, one based on mutual respect, communication, and genuine love.